Norm, welcome to the program. So it seemed that as of Wednesday, we had a bipartisan deal that the president would have signed today. And then, as I noted there in the introduction, things blew up when Elon Musk started getting involved and posting over 70 times on X, Donald Trump following suit, demanding that raising the debt ceiling also be included in the CR or doing away with it altogether. What do you make of the current dynamic in Washington, and does it surprise you at all?
So, Bianna, as you know, I've been immersed in this process for a lot of years, a lot of decades, and we've seen farces before, but this takes the proverbial cake. And it's obviously a combination, a toxic mix of forces here. One part of it is that while Mike Johnson is the Speaker of the House, and remember, he became Speaker when Kevin McCarthy, the previous Republican Speaker, was ousted, and it took 15 votes and many, many days before they could settle on the lowest common denominator, Mike Johnson. But Johnson, just like Kevin McCarthy, can't keep his own Republican majority in line. Now, Mike Johnson is no moderate. In fact, he is pretty close to a Christian nationalist extremist. But he has a whole lot of his own members who are to his right and don't trust him because he's trying to actually find some way to govern. Now, they're down to a slender majority that's going to be down even more in January. There are a lot of Republicans already who've called for his ouster, although they don't have another alternative. And he is caught between Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, the latter two being billionaires who Trump tabbed to lead a non-governmental project, the Department on Government Efficiency, who are intervening without any knowledge whatsoever of what government does or how it does it. And we're left with this ridiculous farce, which by midnight tonight could lead to a government shutdown that would be very, very disruptive over this holiday period.
And now you're having both Mike Johnson and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance putting the blame squarely on Democrats for the current situation and the fact that we may be facing a government shutdown within just a few hours. Democrats have responded by saying they agree to that initial bipartisan deal, and it is Republicans who blew it up. And notable that in that bipartisan, that second piece of legislation that failed yesterday, which was endorsed by Donald Trump, 38 Republicans also voted no, one of them being Chip Roy. I'd like to play sound from him after that.
Yeah.
To take this bill yesterday and congratulate yourself because it's shorter in pages but increases the debt by $5 trillion is asinine. And that's precisely what Republicans are doing. I'm absolutely sickened by a party that campaigns on fiscal responsibility and has the temerity to go forward to the American people and say, you think this is fiscally responsible. It is absolutely ridiculous.
And in response to that, Donald Trump then threatened Chip Roy with being primaried in 2 years. And this seems to be the modus operandi for anybody that stands in the way of Donald Trump's policies and what he supports. And that is threatening fellow Republicans publicly with primaries in the future. Do you think this is something that we can now expect to see going forward in Trump 2.0? And how do you see that playing out within the party dynamic as a whole?
You know, Bianna, I think this was a really big fault or problem for Donald Trump. He is not yet president, sworn in for his second term. He threatened a lot of these members, starting with Chip Roy, with a primary. Elon Musk said that he would put huge sums of money in, and 38 Republicans, as you said, basically spurned him. That is not a sign of strength. It's not a sign of what we've seen before, when Donald Trump would say jump, every one of the Republicans in office basically said how high. So this is a big problem for him. I have to believe he's not going to be happy with Elon Musk, because the fact is that it took painstaking negotiations over a few months to come up with that original deal, which had some priorities for Democrats, but a whole lot of what Republicans wanted, to take the government into March when Donald Trump, with a full set of power structures in place from the House and the Senate, could craft his own priorities. And of course, that includes giant tax cuts. This is a bad sign. And let me note one other thing here that's pretty important. On January 3rd, the new Congress convenes. The Republican majority in the House is going to be more slender. They will be missing very soon 3 of their own members, 2 who Trump has picked for his administration, 1, Matt Gaetz, who is resigning. They'll be down to a 2-vote margin. And we already have far more Republicans in the House saying they will not support Mike Johnson. The House on January 3rd cannot begin to do anything. And that includes 3 days later on January 6th, when they're supposed to certify the electoral votes, without a speaker in place who can swear in the new members and convene these sessions. So we're headed for one train wreck after another, and very possibly a shutdown that could last well into January or further beyond that. This really is a gang that can't shoot straight and that doesn't seem to have any interest in governing. Their interest is in blowing things up, and they're doing a pretty good job of that.
But listen, this is the first time we're now getting indication that Joe Biden spoke with Democratic leaders on Capitol Hill about the situation. He has been virtually silent the last 48 hours in this. Donald Trump publicly saying that if there's going to be a shutdown, let it be Biden's shutdown. And as I noted, many Republicans placing the blame on Democrats. And there is a question of whether or not, given the silence we've seen from the White House and given the continued blame from Republicans on Democrats, whether Americans will indeed say that this is the fault of Democrats. That's to be determined, though. I do have a question to ask you about the Elon Musk factor, because he's not only involving himself in domestic politics, as we know, being the right hand of Donald Trump, but also in foreign politics as well, meeting with Nigel Farage, some really extreme members of governments around the world. Most recent to raise eyebrows is his endorsement overnight on Twitter of AfD, the extreme right party in Germany, saying that only AfD can save Germany. That was responded quickly from the co-chairman of the party, Alice Weidel, who said, "You are absolutely right." How far does his influence actually extend, and how concerning is this, that he's wading into not only U.S. politics, but global politics?
It's very concerning, frankly, on a whole set of levels. Elon Musk is by far the richest person in the world, and he made this deal with Donald Trump in part, as many other billionaires did, because they knew that they could get even richer. He has completely taken over that platform, Twitter, which he renamed as X. He has manipulated it so that his tweets go out to virtually everybody on the platform, which is a couple of 100 million people. And what's happened to Elon Musk is he's been completely captured by far-right extremists and conspiracy theorists. He regularly retweets some of the craziest things and lies that have been said. And now he's in bed with the most extreme parties in Western democracies and probably around the world. He is pro-Putin and anti-Zelensky. And the problem is, even though he is a buffoon in many ways when it comes to understanding what government does, having a disregard for the truth, he has a platform that is almost unmatched. We often talk about the presidential bully pulpit, but you know, the bully pulpit that Elon Musk has with all of those resources is even greater. And one final thing we need to keep in mind is Donald
Norm,
Trump
I'm
is
sorry,
the alpha male.
We're tight on time. We should just note he hasn't come out publicly saying I'm pro-Putin, anti-Zelensky, but of course one can come to those conclusions just given some of his past actions and questionable statements. He has provided aid for Ukraine, and then obviously there's reporting on his relationship with Russia as well. Norm, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it.